Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our main event! Hosted by Eric McMahon, it's Cageside with John Morgan!
Welcome everybody to another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I am your host, Eric McMahon. Now, go back, check us out in the archives. Last week, we went through the legend retiring, which is Jose Aldo. We even gave some of our favorite Jose Aldo moments. He had left a major impact on the sports world, particularly MMA. We also broke down what we could have expected from the card this past weekend that was Bellator in Dublin. Today, we are going to go over that card. Busy week of MMA leading up. Another legend retires. And guess what? We have a list. I don't know. I'm just going to tell you, I like having lists. So we're going to have another list today. But a guy who is at the top of my list of all-time favorite people, John Morgan. What's up, buddy?
I'm getting ready for, you said, man, a busy week. You know, it was kind of a down week last week. We did have Bellator 285, which was fun. I mean, you had that amazing Irish crowd. They always deliver in Dublin. But it felt like kind of a little pause, a little break to get ready for this week where literally every single major organization is in business this weekend doing shows. So it's going to be a busy one, but that's fun. That means there's a lot of fights to watch.
Yeah, I mean, all three of the promotions having shows, one even having multiple shows. We will get into that, but I do want to go back to Bellator 285 in Dublin. And you said just an electric crowd. I actually just read today that they've already booked another show for, I believe, in February in Dublin. I mean, if I was running that promotion, every other month would be in Dublin with that crowd. It's amazing. It's
pretty cool, man. That venue, it's called the 3 Arena. It's had a couple names over the years. I actually got to go there for when Conor McGregor headlined in there. And I mean, just the building itself is amazing. It's kind of like an amphitheater, so everybody's kind of on this one big wall of fans, basically. And the Irish people, I mean, they just come out, and of course they cheer their own, but I mean, they cheer everything. It really is some of the best crowds in combat sports. And you're right, man. It just seems like a special environment every single time. You know, they always make it a point, to just kind of lay out on the broadcast and let Peter Quilly do his walkout for the main event, and zombies playing and everybody's singing along, and it was a great scene. The main event, Benson Henderson beats Peter Quilly in a unanimous decision. I know Vincent Henderson had wanted to put on a better show. It wasn't the most exciting fight of all times, but it was, a big win for Benson Henderson in the main event. He says he's got, 3 fights left in his contract, 3 fights left in his career, probably. And then, of course, you had the Yoel Romero win over Melvin Manoff. There were some memorable moments for sure, but, kind of went out with a little bit of a whimper. But it was a big win for Benson Henderson, who's kind of trying to make one last title run maybe as he wraps up his career.
The ageless Benson Henderson. And if you guys also want to hear how he almost whooped my ass one day, go back and check out last week's episode, which was pretty cool. But you kind of buried the lead there. I would say the lead, aside from Yoel Romero, just, doing all things that is Yoel Romero, the lead was this amazing walkout by Peter Quilly. I got to see it in Ireland last time when he took on Patricky. And I remember I was floored by it. And I was not going to miss watching this walkout live again at the 3 Arena in Dublin, Ireland. That's the lead of that was the moment of the card for me. When you have what did that probably see? 13 to 15,000 people in there?
It's a little less. I think it's around like 9 or 10, but it's still, but it's packed. And again, they're all kind of that one place, and they're all screaming at the top of their lungs. So it may be 9 or 10. It feels like 15.
But when the broadcast crew just shuts up and lets the crowd do its thing, it was just amazing. I even tweeted it. I said, hey, Peter Quilly may have came up short, but his walkout is goated at this point.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely a memorable scene, and that's why, as you said, the broadcast kind of lays out, and that's why they definitely have there. It's just crazy because, and much respect to Peter Quilly, because you mentioned the 2 matchups that he's had in Dublin, and that's Patricky Ferretti and Benson Henderson. I mean, 2 of the toughest guys in the entire promotion. So, I guess kudos to Bellator for not just handing him gimme type matchups, and kudos to him for taking them, because he doesn't have to take those tough fights. He could say, can we get something a little easier here so I can get a win in front of my home crowd? But he's taking on these tough matchups. Like I said, didn't go his way, and you're right. I mean, if there was anything that was going to top it, would have been the reaction after, if he'd have been able to do something spectacular. But unfortunately, Vincent Henderson is just top quality, man. He really is, and again, wasn't necessarily the most exciting performance for the full 25 minutes, but it was a very effective performance. He certainly couldn't argue with that.
Well, let's get into Benson Henderson, because I really wanted to talk about him today. because he showed us like what has always been one of the knocks on Benson Henderson. He starts slow and it just puts him behind the 8 ball, and then he doesn't deliver in the fashion of which we think he's capable. I think this was quite the opposite. In anything we talked about last week, that Jose Aldo showed a little bit of mercy and leniency back on Uriah Faber on those leg kicks. I almost think that's what Benson did a little bit. He started strong. He started fast. He mixed it up. I mean, if we're going to talk about the tools of a complete martial artist, he put those on display on, I almost said Friday night, but Friday afternoon. I mean, because he was just awesome.
It really was. It's just, and I guess, me saying that maybe wasn't the most exciting is maybe being overly critical, because you have to put some of that on Peter Quilly as well, because Benson Henderson was just so dominant. I mean, he was able to control things in the wrestling aspect. He was able to do some damage on the feet as well. And again, it was a very meaningful matchup for him. I mean, Benson Henderson, even at this point in his career, is ranked number 3 in the division in Bellator's ranking. So, there's a possibility of him getting one last championship fight before he calls it a career. He just signed a 4-fight deal that he says will probably be his last. He actually wants to focus on helping his wife and her fighting career and focus on that moving forward. So, but he's
don't
right
coach
there.
Against her. Don't coach against her.
Eric can vouch for that. You will get in trouble for that. But no, so I mean, look, it was a big result for him. It was a win that he needed to have, and he did it in dominant fashion, because Peter Quilly came in ranked number 7 as well. So again, it's not as if it was somebody that's just unranked and completely out of his league. And Benson Henderson made it look kind of easy, if we're being honest with you, and proving that he's still an elite level fighter. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him next, because you've got Usman Nurmagomedov in there that's going to fight for the title. You've got Tofik Musayev, who is an absolute monster, who's new to the organization but came in and made a big statement. I think both those guys are ahead of Benson right now. I don't know if Benson wants to fight some of these younger up-and-coming killers or not. So I'm going to be really interested to see what the next matchup is for Benson.
What I'd really like to see from Benson, and this is coming from a fan perspective, I want to see those legacy fights for him now. I want to see, it was cool getting to see Benson Henderson fight in front of a ruckus Dublin, Ireland crowd. That was super, super cool for me. I know he was the heel and the villain in that fight, but even against your hometown guy, you can't hate on Benson Henderson. He's like the most likable guy in the game.
Yeah, you really can't, man. I mean, the guy's been around he's done it. I mean, look, I think sometimes we do throw around the word legend too often, but I mean, you think about it with Benson, a former UFC champ, a former WEC champ, high ranked in Bellator, even at this point in his career. I mean, the man has done it all across 3 different organizations for, more than a decade. I think he got to the WEC in his 7th or 8th fight as a professional, and then, stayed in the WEC and UFC until he came to Bellator. So he's been at the highest level of the sport for so long. And so, I feel like sometimes we throw that word out there too much, but when you accomplish what Benson has accomplished, how can you not say MMA legend?
I mean, I think anybody who doesn't say that is a fool, and I'll say that publicly. So yeah, I agree. We do use that a lot, and it happens we're catchphrasy. Legend of MMA, but Benson Henderson is a legend of MMA. We kind of just say he's not really up next for a title shot. He's one step closer, right, after, whoever, whatever shakes out. But I do want to see those legacy fights. But let's just kind of move on. We got to see that lackluster main event, but hey, we got the Peter Quilly knockout or walkout. I am happy with that. But I think what most people came to see, aside from a Dublin, Ireland crowd, was Yoel Romero versus Melvin Manoff. Now, we didn't even touch on this. Were you aware that he was going into his last fight?
Yeah, well, I mean, you never know, because it seems like some guys kind of retract on that, but I'd heard that this was probably going to be it for Melvin Manoff. He had kind of mentioned it, so believed it was probably going to be his retirement fight, and of course ended up doing so in, I guess, kind of sad fashion, right?
Yeah, and he was very emotional about it. But let's get into the fight first, and we're going to get into what maybe his legacy will be left at and what will be. But Yoel Romero, I mean, you said it before. This guy just built out of granite, and he comes away with another. Let's call it what it was. It was a dominant victory. He was never in danger. He never took a clean punch, even just a sweeping leg kick against Melvin in that first round, literally almost inverted him. The guy's a freak.
Yeah, he's an absolute. Yo Romero at 45 years old is an absolutely physical, intimidating presence. Eric, the one thing I love about Yo Romero is he's 1 year older than me. So I can always look at him and say, there's still time. I can still do that too. Just give me a little bit of work. But no, man, 45 years old. As you said, just an athletic freak of nature, man. I mean, what this man has been able to do, Olympic wrestling, to a mixed martial arts career where, he's competing at 45 and says he wants to do it until he's 50. I mean, and he can. I mean, normally a person saying I'm going to compete till I'm 50, you'd be like, what are you talking about? He's an absolute stud. But yeah, I mean, Melvin Manoff came in there with an ability. I think there's a generation of fans who might not realize what a feared striker Melvin Manoff was early in his day. Melvin came in at 46 as well. So, certainly up there, a lot was made. The combined ages of these two guys were 91 years old, which is wild when you say it out loud. But
I mean, as a co-main event of Bellator, combined age of 91. That's insanity.
It's insanity, but as you said, like, I'll be honest with you, that was probably the fight on the card I was most excited about. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it did, it did finish in a pretty devastating highlight reel fashion. And Melvin, it seems like it's calling it, quits now. And I just hope that some people will realize that, because I just know there's fans that didn't see his prime era when he was such an absolute feared monster, but he was.
I went back and looked at his record today, right? And his record, win some, lose some, right? And especially later in his career, he like rattled off his first 20 victories, like 18 of them by knockout. It was, imagine having to walk in and this is the day you didn't know much about your opponents when you're going to fight them. Imagine like, hey, you're fighting a guy who's knocked out 18 people in a row. You'd be like, hell no.
Absolute savage, man. And it wasn't just the way it wasn't just the fact that he got knockouts. It was the way he did it. I mean, this dude was just coming at you, aggressive, swinging. He might be slipping a little bit on the canvas because he's just rushing after you so much. He's not just sitting up in the pocket and firing out a jab. He's like literally running at you, just throwing hooks and going crazy. So, yeah, man, an absolute walking highlight reel early in his career.
So, I mean, and obviously one of the fights in defeat, but one of the funnest fights was him and Robbie Lawler. Do you recall that fight?
Of course. It was insane. Exactly.
If anybody hasn't seen that, which a lot of newer fans haven't seen that fight, you need to go back and watch it. I mean, Robbie Lawler was on the ropes, and that doesn't happen to Robbie Lawler. He is so cool, calm, under fire in the pocket, and he is on the ropes. And then he finally uncorks and, catches Melvin, but that just shows how when you can rope, there's only a few people that can really rope a Robbie Lawler into that just pure, fracas of a fight like that. And when, Melvin Manoff does, like, you got to tip the cap at him. And I want to say this, I'm going to jump the shark a little bit, but what is his legacy? Where, what is he going to be remembered as? Obviously the knockout artist.
Yeah, I think so. Anybody that watched him in his prime would be just that scary knockout artist. I mean, he had that intimidation factor about him as well. Because, again, it wasn't just he was going to come in and pump the jab and set up the technique. I mean, it was all out aggression. Like, he was coming at you from the start. And then, as you said, go back through it and look at some of the names. And I'll just read these off. These are consecutive opponents, mind you, Eric. He fought these people all in a row. Kazushi Sakuraba, Gegard Mousasi, Mark Hunt, Paulo Filho, Kazui Masaki. Then you get into that Robbie Lawler fight, Tatsuya Mizuno as well, Tim Kennedy. Those were all consecutive fights. I mean, that's crazy. Between 2008 and 2010, this man would literally fight anybody. Didn't matter the weight class. It didn't matter the size. He's going to go against anybody, and he was always going to make it exciting. And look, we talked about it a little bit last week. The odds in this were heavily in favor of Yoel Romero, and understandably so. As we said, it was probably Yoel Romero, his fight to lose. And certainly he came out and did win the fight. But the thing that makes it exciting is Melvin can knock out anybody. And that's what we were, excited to see. If maybe he had a little bit of magic left. He didn't, unfortunately. And that's just the reality of the fight game. To be honest, there's not a lot of Cinderella stories out there or, beautiful fairy tale endings in the fight game. I mean, the fight game, unfortunately, kind of ends in bad fashion for most people. And it did here for Melvin Manoff, but it didn't change, as you said, kind of the emotion of the scene. And for anybody, again, that's been around this game and understands, who Melvin Manoff was, it was sad to see him go. But this is just a sport that you can't do forever. It's a young man's game.
Well, a wild man in the cage and a constant entertainer on his way to the cage. And that's what I think the legacy is going to be, because even his walkout, he was jamming, he was dancing, he was firing himself, he was absorbing the crowd getting ready to go into battle. But unfortunately, who had to go into battle with was Yoel Romero. And I just want to read some interesting stats, and I'll kind of let you expand upon it. He has 13 career knockouts as a wrestler, first off, Olympic wrestler, 9 of which, now this is unheard of. And I think this just talks about the freak athlete and bone structure. Who knows what it is? Just the freak that he really is. 9 of his 13 knockouts have all come in the 3rd round. And both of his Bellator victories, knockouts, have come in the 3rd round. 6 of his 7 UFC finishes have all come in the 3rd round. What in the hell is that all about?
That is crazy. To be honest with you, I didn't even realize it was that many. I mean, I knew he had quite a few kind of late finishes, but I didn't realize it was like that. Man, that's unbelievable. And yeah, it just kind of goes to show you what Yoel Romero does. I mean, the thing about Yoel is that he is an absolute genetic freak. I mean, he is an incredible athlete, but he also, as you see, carries a ton of muscle. I mean, he is packed. Like, I don't think there's an ounce of fat on him. It's pure muscle. The problem is, if you're engaging all those muscles, it kind of depletes you of oxygen very quickly and you start to tire out. So what Yoel has really become a master of over his career is really pacing himself. And you'll see it. He'll basically have these stretches of inactivity where he's essentially actively resting, and he's allowing himself to build up for these big explosive outbursts that he'll time. And I think, in the 3rd round, when he knows, okay, I see the finish line is in sight now. I know that I've paced myself well, and I know that I'm not going to run out of gas. Let's push forward. I think that probably speaks to why he's been so effective late in rounds, because in the early rounds, he's always very much, conscious of making sure that he's going to have enough stamina to go the distance. And then when he gets there, he realizes it's time to unleash that power.
Have you ever heard Joe Rogan talk about the time he spoke with a doctor who examined Yoel Romero and said that he has never in the history of ever doing medicine ever seen somebody with the bone structure and which defines logic?
Yeah, I think they said even ligaments around his eyes were 3 times thicker than a normal human being or whatever. It's crazy to hear about. But yeah, it's one thing for us to just sit here and be like, wow, man, that dude has got a lot of muscle on him, or wow, it's amazing. 45, he's this. But when you hear medical professionals that have examined a guy say, I've never seen the structure of a human being like that, it's pretty incredible.
And you guys have all seen, I mean, we have the picture up of Romero. That's not normal, everybody. And it's not even normal in the fight game. Like, just imagine seeing him walking down the street. Good Lord.
I mean, and again, I'll just go back to say it, and at 45 years old, you know what I mean? It's not like, maybe if a dude's 25 or whatever, you go, all right, well, he's fresh out of college, he's got that young muzzle. Man, is 45 years old, has been doing it a lifetime, man. It's pretty unbelievable.
And the agility that he still has, like him dropping down to one knee just to as a feint, it almost it makes me jump watching it. Like, what the hell was that? Like, you're slamming your knee into the mat. It's pretty damn impressive.
He's got good dance moves too, man. Sometimes at a press conference, he'll get going with a little saucy. Remember he had the little dance off with Israel Adesanya on the stage? I mean, come on, man. He's a character for sure, man.
But he did the was it a backflip?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did a backflip. 47. How old is he again?
45.
45 doing a backflip on stage. Are you kidding me? But hey, in honor of him, Melvin Manoff, who this is really where the list is based around, but also I saw this great interview that you did just in the last day or so with Rich Franklin, president of ONE FC. They got some cards coming up. In honor of these 3 people, we are going to give our list of our favorite knockout artists of all time. Now, I'm going to preference this. A lot of people are saying they're not the greatest of all time. Okay, listen. It's our favorite, maybe not the greatest, but our favorite knockout artist of all time, because you believe I've done some lists before. On a wrestling podcast, I give some lists, and undoubtedly these Twitter haters come out and say, you're an idiot. And I said, just please read the preference, like my favorite. Okay.
And let me just say how hard it is to whittle it down to 3. My goodness, man. I as I was looking at a list of 3 names to put together, I realized how non-inclusive this was of so many great names, man. It's difficult to narrow down for sure. But as you said, John, pick your favorites. The one that you're not necessarily statistically the best, not necessarily whatever, just your favorites. So as such, we shall proceed.
So I don't know. Do you want to go from 3 to 1, 1 to 3, no particular order, or is it just your 3 favorite?
Let's go 3 to 1. 3 to 1.
Okay.
Am I
Go
starting? All right. I will start out with number 3, the phenom himself, Vitor Belfort. I mean, came into the UFC as a teenager, continued to do amazing things. Is still looking to fight a little bit now. Had some controversy along the way. Him and I had a little bit of a disagreement at a press conference at one time, which is a little bit, where he told people to beat me up. But we worked it out. We're good buddies now.
What is it with fighters? Like, you're the nicest guy in the world. Like, literally, you're one of the nicest people I know. What is it with these fighters getting up all in their feels with you sometimes?
I'm telling you, it's a highly emotional sport, and I get it. They're tense sometimes. So we had some moments, but we worked it out. We're good buddies now, and you cannot take away that body work. So number 3 for me, Vitor Belfort.
All right, number 2.
Number 2, I'm going with the Spider, Anderson Silva. I mean, come on, Anderson Silva. Another guy who I say, unfortunately, I know there's a group of fans that have only seen the tail end of his career and only saw maybe some setbacks and don't understand how really feared this man was. When he was at the peak of his career, before the loss to Weidman, and then, of course, before, the later stages of career, this man was operating in a different universe, man. You've seen the clip of him against, Forrest Griffin, where everybody says he kind of entered the Matrix, where he's just ducking out of the way. And that was crazy. And he used to do that. He'd put his hands down and just kind of duck and move just to get you in the place he wanted. That's right. Come over here, man, kind of lean up against the wall. I mean, the man was a performer, a showman. He was on an absolutely different level. And listen, man, it's pretty amazing to see what he's doing in boxing right now as well. Of course, he's got this boxing match coming up with Jake Paul next month, which I'm going to admit I'm interested in it. I'm interested in this matchup with Jake Paul.
He beat Chavez Jr.
Exactly. I mean, that's a legitimate victory. So Anderson Silva, one of the greatest mixed martial artists to ever do it, but also one of my favorite knockout artists as well.
I think me, again, I date myself I actually watched UFC 1 live, truth be told. And so I've been a lifelong fan. I think I was in 6th grade when that happened. But when I first I had heard of Anderson Silva from, surfing, the web and stuff. But when he jumped into the UFC and when he fought Chris Lieben,
unbelievable.
I was just like, oh my goodness. This is a whole different level type of guy.
That man made a statement when he came in. Boy, I'll never forget that debut because, like you, I had seen a little bit from across seas, and I was excited about it. There were so many people that didn't know what they were about to watch, and he stepped in and just wowed the world. So unbelievable, Anderson Silva. And then my number 1.
Let's go.
Again, I'm going favorites here. I was reminiscing. I was thinking about feared knockout artists, and I went right leg hospital, left leg cemetery. Mirko Cro Cop, baby. Come on, Mirko Cro Cop. That dude was like from a different era as well, where, the Pride era you touched on there, where this man was out here just wrecking fools with nasty kicks. I mean, pure striking. Obviously, became a well-rounded mixed martial artist, of course, but at the end of the day, you weren't looking for Mirko Cro Cop to come out and do some jiu-jitsu or shoot in. I mean, you were looking for him to throw those nasty leg kicks, the nasty high kicks. I mean, just an absolutely devastating striker. And again, came to the UFC and didn't necessarily have the same level of success in the UFC. But when you think about, the era with, Fedor Emelianenko and Josh Barnett. And I mean, it was an amazing era of heavyweights. And that was at a time, you'll remember, where where Pride's heavyweight division was actually better than the UFC's heavyweight division. They had more big stars, more big names. So that was an unbelievable time. And I'll say Mirko Cro Cop was. And let me just say, I left off. Again, it's so Vanderlei Silva should be on here somewhere. Igor Vovchanchin, if you're looking for another old. I mean, getting to 3 was just impossible.
I almost put Igor on my list, but you almost have to kind of tailor your list to popular demand to a degree as well, a little bit. So, okay, let's recap. Number 3, Vitor Belfort, the phenom, coming in against, and just like when you take notice when you knock out the wrecking machine that was Tank Abbott when you're 18 years old.
Crazy.
Good Lord. Number 2, Anderson, the Spider, Silva. Did you mention any of this to Rich Franklin when you just interviewed him?
I thought there might be some lingering feelings there, that I decided not to say anything.
And your all-time favorite knockout artist, which I cannot disagree with, is Mirko Cro Cop, who did knock the head off of Alberto Del Rios, the WWE wrestling champion, who fought him with a mask on. And I guess if you're going to fight with a mask on, you deserve to get your head kicked off.
It was a different time. It was a different time.
That was. Okay, you ready for mine?
Let's hear it.
All right. Number 3. Now, this is going to come as no surprise to, whether you're a new fan or an old fan, the Iceman, Chuck Liddell.
Yeah.
And I will still just always remember him smashing Babalu's face with that shin. He clips him clean, then kicks him. And then then Ronaldo went on like a 10-fight win streak. And they said that was lightning in a bottle. That was a lucky knockout. And then he just destroys him worse the second time, knocks him cold. I mean, there's so many knockouts that we can go through, whether it be the rivalries and the war and the knockouts of Tito Ortiz, the Vanderlei Silva. There was no knockout there, but that one that still ranks as one of my chilling moments of mixing Pride and the UFC together. That was a dream matchup that we were all waiting to see. And you know what made him great is he was a college wrestler. He was a college wrestler who became the most, in my opinion, the most feared knockout artist of his generation.
Oh, I would agree. And not just a feared knockout, but an absolute superstar. I mean, that guy was the face of the UFC for a while and still is, to be honest. I can tell you to this day, Eric, when Chuck Liddell walks into a room, people go crazy, man. He's still sporting the mohawk. He's obviously very recognizable, but man, that guy is so beloved and just such an absolute superstar and representative of the sport. And just a great guy to talk to as well. And you're absolutely right, man. That'd be Chuck Liddell. Dude, that man again, feared knockout artist, man. He was so good. Just the sprawl and brawl style, kind of using that defensive wrestling just so that he could keep you up and land those big strikes, man. And again, a great champion and a superstar.
And the one thing I loved about him is he wasn't doing a slip and rip type thing either. He was walking you down and he was staying cocked and ready. He was cocked and ready to throw the whole time. Number 2, and now all you new school people are going to completely jive with this one. Derek the Black Beast Lewis. There couldn't be a more fun personality in the game right now than Derek Lewis. And I'm telling you, I want him to knock people out just so I can get a post-fight interview.
He is great, man. As you said, I mean, again, another fighter, kind of as we mentioned in Yoel Romero earlier, Derek Lewis, a guy that, that will pace himself, that will pick his spots, that understands, he can't necessarily go full speed, but he'll wait for those one moments. And with Derek Lewis, he's got that one-touch power, man. He only needs to hit you one time. I mean, Curtis Blades, that's the one that stands out to me right away. You think about
scary.
Absolutely scary. Just went stiff with the big shot from Derek Lewis, but amazing. And then, as you said, just a phenomenal personality all around as well. It's half disinterested in doing a media obligation, but will give you some funny jokes and some little one-liners along the way. And
takes off his shorts in the octagon. Hey, why did you take your shorts off? My balls were hot.
Who says stuff like that, man, and gets away with it? You know what I mean? And it's so fun because he really he has kind of a love-hate relationship with fighting. He'll kind of admit, the nerves get there, and it's not necessarily that he really loves necessarily participating in mixed martial arts contests, but it's how he provides for his family. He wants to provide. He had a terrible life growing up, and he's been able to provide a better life for his children, and so he kind of deals with it. And he goes in there, and it's wild because it seems like he's always facing a better athlete. He's always facing somebody with better wrestling. Somebody's more well-rounded. But if he touches you once, you're going to sleep, man. And Derek Lewis, Great addition to the list there.
And I first saw him fighting in LFA, based out of Texas. He's from Texas. And when I first saw him, I was like, who the hell is this guy? You know what I mean? And then I just thought he was a big, fat, out of shape guy. I thought he was going to wear out in the first minute. And then he's taking heads off left and right, comes to the UFC. He holds the all-time record for most knockouts in the heavyweight division. And he's just a tremendously fun guy to watch. Number 1, my all-time favorite, who may go down. I don't know. I got to think a little bit deeper about this, but who my all-time favorite fighter, Hendo, Mr. America himself, Dan Henderson, and I will never UFC 100. And this is maybe. Now, I'm a huge fan of Bisping now, but maybe where my love for Dan Henderson came is on the Ultimate Fighter, him and Michael Bisping going back and forth, and just he uncorks the Hendo bomb. And it was all she wrote. And Dan Henderson may go down as my favorite fighter of all time because, one, Greco-Roman Olympian, but two, another theme here, wrestlers become strikers. And then he goes out, and if he uncorks with the Hendo bomb, guess what? You're going lights out.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a real argument that he's the greatest American mixed martial artist of all time when you talk about what he accomplished. I mean, was a two-division champion in Pride, came over and had some success in the UFC as well. That memorable knockout of Michael Bisping at UFC 100. Of course, he ends up making it his logo where he's flying through the air to land the second punch. And it's wild because you think about Michael Bisping, a guy that I think is kind of universally loved right now, but during his fighting career was kind of universally hated as being, an absolute prick, if you're being honest about it, man. And he knows it. He used to stir things up a little bit and talk a lot of trash along the way. But yeah, there were a lot of people that really loved Dan Hendo for that moment because they hated Michael Bisping so much. Feelings have changed. But yeah, man, Dan Anderson, great choice there. And, you think about all that he accomplished in his career. It's pretty special.
All right, so our list, we just went through our list. Tell us what you think about it. He is John Morgan _MMA. I am E_Mac Life. Love it, hate it, give us some crap, whatever. It's Twitter. You can say reach out to us. But going from like these old school knockout artists to a guy who, really came in as this highly touted wrestler who is now going up the chain as a knockout artist himself. Aaron Pico, you just got a chance to sit down with Aaron Pico. Let's go ahead and take a look at this interview.
All right, it is Aaron Pico. Aaron, the hard part is just about done at this point, right? We're getting ready for October 1st, Bellator 286. Just give me the feel right now, man, being this close to a big fight.
I feel really good. I feel training camp was excellent. It was very difficult, hard. There's just no way around it. I trained super, super hard, and I've had my good days, my bad days, but it all makes sense because I feel amazing right now. So it was all worth it.
I love it, man. We'll talk about the matchup in a second, but I wanted to ask you about the location first, right? Long Beach, California, heading back to SoCal. I just wonder, man, is it special for you? I mean, I know at the end of the day, a fight's a fight, and you make it out there every now and then anyway, but is it cool to get to compete there?
Yeah, it's awesome. I love fighting back in California, especially having the crowd on my side and having my family there. Yeah, it's nice. It's really, really nice. And it's a little bit hectic sometimes because you have all kinds of people coming in and a little bit more pressure. But when I hear that crowd chanting my name, it makes it all worth it. And yeah, I'm focused on the task at hand. That's Jeremy Kennedy. So, but yeah, I look forward to going back to Southern California.
I was going to say, how tough is that to balance, right? Because you're back in town for the week and people are like, let's get together, let's hang out. You're like, you do realize I'm trying to prepare myself for a cage fight with another trained killer. I'm trying to get my head right now.
No, it's true. It's true. But, luckily for me, I have friends and family that are understanding and they know I've been doing this all my life and competing and stuff. So I have friends that, the biggest thing is, at tickets and stuff like that. All my friends and family just go and buy their tickets and make my life a lot easier. So, yeah, it's nice.
You're like, bro, Ticketmaster.com. Have at it, man.
Yeah, because it comes out of my purse, So, but no, it's all good. I have a good support system. I have a big. All my family's down there, and I'm Southern California, born and raised Southern California, Whittier, and Long Beach is just a short car ride away. So, yeah, it's going to be a good night for our team.
Looking forward to it. As you said, Jeremy Kennedy, the opponent. You guys were supposed to fight in April. Did it matter to you to put this fight back together? I mean, obviously you guys are both at the top of the rankings, so it makes sense. But was there anything stylistically or anything about that you were like, that's the fight we want to put back together?
No, to be honest with you, I didn't really care. I got done. I'm happy Adley Edwards stepped up. It was a great fight for me. And I just got a phone call from Ali saying, "Hey, you're fighting Jeremy Kennedy," and I said, "Okay, no problem." It was nice because I've been preparing for him for months, and we just got right back to work. So, yeah, no big deal.
Talk to me about what you see in him, because I feel like he's a guy that kind of flies under the radar a little bit, man. He's had some quality results. He's got some skills. What do you think about him as an opponent?
A tough guy for sure. A veteran. He's fought in the PFL, UFC, obviously Bellator. But I think it's just I believe we're on a different level. I'm evolving. I'm getting better, and I think my pressure, pace, my power is going to be a little too much for him. But make no mistake, this guy is a great fighter, and we got our work cut out for us. But we're excited.
Talk to me about your preparation, Aaron, because, obviously New Mexico is home now. We see the work you're putting in at Jackson Wink, but also, the connection with Brandon Gibson. I mean, just from the outside looking in, it looks to me like you guys have kind of gotten a little special bond together, man, and he's really meant something. So talk to me about that relationship and kind of what he means to you at this point in your career.
Yeah, he's my family. He really is. And we have a really good connection, and we're just the first day he held pads for me, I just knew that it was gonna be a fit. And as time progressed, he's changed my game. I thought I knew what combinations and punching was, but he's just on a different level. He is the best striking coach in the world, I believe, and he's a great wrestling coach. I always say like this, it's a striking coach's responsibility to be able to come up with the best combinations to get you to a safe entry as far as wrestling. So that's the way that we look at it. It's just not hands. He's a wrestling coach as well. A lot of the combinations that we do are great combinations to get me into a wrestling position and to get there safely. And I think nobody in the game has done this. So yeah, I call him my wrestling coach and my striking coach, because I always say, "Coach, it's your job to get me to his legs safely. Make sure you call out the right combinations and come up with the good combos to get us there." So yeah, everything is going well. I love that guy, and he's my big brother.
That's awesome, man. It's a great way to look at it too, because it's so true. But if anybody hasn't seen the work, they should go check out your Instagram, because you put out a recent post of the hands were on fire. But what I couldn't help was looking at the comments. You got BJ Penn in there, Clay Guida in there, Holly Holm in there, Ali Malay McFarland in there, all just going like, "Bro, you're looking on fire right now." So when you see people like that showing respect, man, I gotta imagine that's a special feeling.
Yeah, it is. It is. But John, we just have fun. I mean, we train hard. We train really, really hard, but we have fun while we're doing it. And yeah, it's good to see our work paying off. And it's all fun and games, but we got to go out there and maul this guy October 1st. That is the priority.
Now, I guess the only bad thing about fight week is I'm assuming that means you have to take a break from cow sorting for a week or two, which I guess is that the downside? Is that, damn, fight week, I can't hop on a horseback and go sort some cows?
Yeah. No, that is the downside, but I just did it last Saturday. I had fun. This weekend, I'm not going to be able to go, just because I'm healthy. I don't want anything to happen. Don't want to jinx it. But no, it's so much fun. And when you win and then you come back on the horse and you go to a competition, it just makes it that much more sweeter. So yeah, I'm having a good time right now, John. I feel good physically, mentally. I'm just ready to go out there and perform and make this one of the best years of my life, the year coming up. So
all right. So that's what I want to ask you about, right? Like, because the only thing you can control is your results, right? You got to go in there and get a win and, get people calling your name, and that's what matters. But when I look at this card on October 1st, I mean, we got a big main event, of course. We got Borix and Pitbull in there. You got Mckee as the co-main, but he's at lightweight, right? He's moving up. So I don't know if he's kind of clearing out the division. Maybe he's making a little room for you. You're right there. So, I mean, so are you, because it just looks like all the pieces are right there, that if things go a certain way, I know you said, "Hey, I'm ready for that title shot." This could be it, maybe.
Yes, I hope so. I think, to answer your question, I want to fight for the title next. I really do. I'm going to be 26 on Friday. I'm physically and mentally ready to become a champion. Before, if you would have asked me, I wasn't ready mentally and physically. But now I feel I have all the tools to be a great champion. I don't want to be a good champion. I want to be a great champion. I don't want to just win the title and not defend it. I want to defend my belt as many times as I possibly can. And the most important thing, I'm ready mentally, and my team is ready. So let's get past Jeremy Kennedy. I'm not looking like it's going to be easy. It's going to be very difficult. But when that time comes and the phone rings for me to fight, for a world championship fight, we're all going to be ready.
It's incredible, man. You paid your dues to this point. I mean, is it wild to me? I guess it's tough for me to think. 'Cause I think when you say I'm 26, I forget how young you are. You're still a baby, but you're not a baby in the sport. You've been competing your whole life. You started this at a very early age. So while to me that still sounds incredibly young, it does seem like mentally, physically, experience-wise, you're ready to challenge at the very top of the sport.
I am, and winning a championship is one thing, but it's just defending the belt. You have to be, as I see champions, you have to be ready to be able to take on that pressure, because there's pressure now, and I'm not even a champion. Your job just gets harder and harder when you put that belt around your waist, and I have a solid group around me, inside the gym and outside the gym, and I feel like my lifestyle, how I live my life. I'm ready. And I've had a lot of ups and downs in my career, but I think it all makes sense now, because it shaped me to the man I am and to the fighter I am. So I just got to stay focused, stay in the process, and trust my eyes and go get the job done. Simple as that.
I love it, man. What a mindset. It's been a hell of a journey for you. So obviously started in such a weird place and difficult spot, but you've made it all work for you, and it sounds like you're in a great spot. So I guess, Aaron, so what's the goal here? Is the idea, hey, we got to go do something spectacular? I mean, I think when you're on, you just do spectacular things. So do you focus on, like, we got to go get a finish, we got to go, or is it just, let's just go in there and do what we do and let the chips fall where they may?
No, I think of it just how you said it. I just let the chips fall where they fall. In my life and in my wrestling career and in sparring, I'm always exciting. I don't try to be exciting. I don't try to do anything. I just go out there and do me. As a young kid, my dad used to always tell me when I'd wrestle, he would always tell me, don't think, just go. Just go do it and don't think. And I've always been exciting. So no matter who I fight, I will always be exciting. That's just who I am. And I know October 1st is going to be exciting. I don't know. I just feel it. And I'm not going to try to just squeak one by or do this or do that. I'm going to go out there and do me. And I know if I do that, I'll be exciting.
I love it. Well, Aaron, I know you're a busy man. You got a lot going on, so I won't keep you any more than necessary. I'll just tell people, tune in October 1st. This card is stacked. And I mean, obviously, you're a huge part of why it's stacked, but this card is absolutely loaded. There's no reason for anybody to miss it. And I know personally I'm looking forward to it. Best of luck to you, Aaron.
Hey, John, thank you. It's always a pleasure. I look forward to the next one.
All right, that was John Morgan and Aaron Pico. And Aaron Pico, guy who's got it all. And, I really do hope that he gets that elusive title shot next. He came in with such great fanfare, kind of got humbleized quickly, and now it just looks like he's on a whole different level than pretty much. And I think championship gold is in not his future. I think it's in his immediate future.
I tend to agree with you, and it's funny, man. I've enjoyed covering Aaron Pico's career. I couldn't help but laugh. We're talking about Yoel Romero at 45. When Aaron Pico says, I'm 26, I'm ready now. I'm like, 26? How are you so young, man? It's incredible. But, as you said, it came in with these expectations. ESPN had the famous headline where they basically called him the greatest prospect of all time. So, I mean, you think about the type of pressure, early in his career. And as you said, suffered a loss in his debut. And there were a lot of people that piled on him that were just like, yes, he told you this guy's a joke. He's never going to be anything. But he was just so young and he was just getting started. And now he's okay admitting that now, that I didn't know what I didn't know back then. I was just, youthful exuberance. I thought I could do everything. But as you said, now really coming into his own, getting finishes, getting knockouts. this is a big test this weekend in Jeremy Kennedy, man. But if he can pass this test, I think he's right. And I think you're right. I think, there's not a lot of other names in those rankings. And obviously Bellator has invested so much time and they've believed in him and they've gotten to this point that I think they'd want to reward him with a title shot. So I think you're right. He's viewing this as a number one contender fight. I'll tell you, I talked to Jeremy Kennedy as well. Jeremy Kennedy also thinks it could be a number one contender fight. He doesn't necessarily have the star power and name recognition that Aaron Pico does, but he's right there in the rankings as well. He's got an impressive career record. So they're both kind of looking at this as, hey, we win this fight, we think, a championship opportunity is next. So this is a big fight. And man, I really like this Bellator 286 card this weekend.
Well, we're gonna touch on that, but great interview, Aaron Pico. I've been a fan since the moment he came in. I was actually a fan of his before. There was a old school Flow wrestling documentary where I first got introduced to Aaron Pico. He was wrestling on the I think like 18 and under US
Crazy.
freestyle team. So
Crazy.
I mean, and this kid has been in the spotlight, the better, from a young adult through now, and he's only faced the stiffest and top tier world competition there are. But looking ahead, like we said, we had a crazy busy weekend of mixed martial arts starting on Thursday. Not one, but two shows for ONE FC. What can we expect there?
Yeah, this is a big weekend for ONE FC, right? So they'll do a show that airs Thursday morning here. Basically, it's Thursday night in Singapore, but then they'll do another one that takes place on Saturday morning in Singapore, but airs here on Friday night. And that's one on Prime Video too, and it's on Amazon Prime Video in the U.S. and Canada. So
I love that they're doing that. I love it.
It's so cool. So okay, from the fights, look, the great thing about ONE Championship, if you haven't seen a ONE Championship card before, is they mix all the disciplines together. So you'll have Muay Thai, you'll have kickboxing, you'll have MMA, you'll have submission grappling, like all on one card, which I think is really fun. The Muay Thai, by the way, it's Muay Thai in 4-ounce gloves, so it's it's knockouts. I mean, that's what happens there. So it's fun to watch. Heavyweight kickboxing Grand Prix on the Thursday night. Saturday's got 3 different title fights in all the different disciplines, including a trilogy fight between Angela Lee and her rivalry there in Zhang Jingnan. They've had 2 fights before. They split them. They were a couple years back. This is the trilogy matchup. It's Angela Lee going for 2 title fights. So, there's a lot here. We could break down the cards because there's a lot going on. But what I'm most excited about, and maybe it's just the business side of it, but I think it's cool, is that in North America, US and Canada, it's streaming on Amazon Prime Video, which is awesome. So if you're an Amazon Prime member, you have this, whether you use it or not. I was not a Prime Video user, but we have it in the house because, everybody has Amazon Prime these days, right? Yeah. And it's cool to see. I mean, you think about the amount of money that Amazon has, and they're dipping their toes into the water here with mixed martial arts. I just think it's a good thing for the business. It kind of shows, hey, we're feeling this out and seeing maybe what's there. You got to think that Apple is probably going to follow suit at some point as well and maybe get into the streaming of mixed martial arts as well. So this is just more money going into the sport, more opportunities for these athletes, and this is their second one on Prime Video. So a big weekend for ONE Championship.
And they're doing it in prime time, which is why I love it.
You're
they're
right.
Making it happen in North America in prime time, because us as fans, and like we said, we don't want to see the UFC get into these other things. It's a traditional mixed martial art. But if you're just a fan of the fight game, this is fun as hell.
It really is. It's really cool. Like I said, because look, submission grappling is on there. I love watching that. That's no striking involved, just grappling. Like I said, you got Muay Thai, you got kickboxing. But as you said, it was kind of hard to follow. They're based in Singapore. They travel around Asia quite a bit. But the truth was, most of their shows were on at like 4:00 in the morning on Friday mornings or whatever. So even as a hardcore fan, it was just kind of hard to keep up and watch everything. And now they're going out of their way. They're doing once monthly shows in North American prime time. They do it very, very early in the morning over there in Asia, so it can stream live here in prime time. It's a real big opportunity. It feels like ONE Championship is really kind of building some momentum off that, because now they're getting new eyeballs on the promotion.
So now let's kind of go to the universally recognized as number 2 MMA promotion. I don't know. I don't really necessarily know if that's true or not, but Bellator MMA 286, another weekend of Bellator. We had the awesome show in Dublin last week. This week it's in Long Beach, and this card is stacked. Now, I don't think we have enough time to really break down, but we got Aaron Pico going against Jeremy Kennedy, AJ Mckee, Spike Carlisle, and one that I'm just really looking forward to in Patricio Pitbull versus Adam Borix. Kind of take us through. We already know about it, Aaron Pico. Take us through the co-main and the main, because if the favorites both win, it's setting up the trilogy, but not so fast with the opponents that they have.
Yeah, let me just say the Showtime opens with Juan Archuleta versus Enrique Barzola, so I wouldn't pass on that as well. This Showtime card is stacked. But you're right. So AJ McKee, interestingly enough, is moving up to lightweight for this. Now, his last matchup was a loss to the champ Patricio Pitbull, so he lost the featherweight title. They're 1-1 in their two matchups, so they're kind of even right now. But as you said, Patricio, the reigning champ, a lot of people thought we might see the trilogy on this card. We're not. AJ McKee is moving up to lightweight for this. He's fighting Spike Carlisle, but most people still recognize that, look, there's unfinished business with Patricio Pitbull, and, featherweight may still be his home. But Patricio Pitbull's got a very, very tough test in Adam Borix as well. A young kid from Hungary who's lost just once in his career, got an impressive career record. So he can come in and play spoiler to all of that and say, don't worry about the trilogy right now because I'm going to take the title. So, big matchups there. And then, as we said, Aaron Pico and Jeremy Kennedy, they both kind of view this as a number one fight as well, and that is a featherweight fight. So all three of those top fights kind of tie into each other, and the results are all going to play off each other in terms of what come next. So I think that's always exciting when, the one fight has some impact on the other fight, right, all there together. So listen, the Showtime broadcast, I'm telling you, all four of those fights are fantastic. So a really big Bellator card. I think one not to miss.
And I think what's really, really cool about this card is they all have common opponents. You know what I mean? So, I mean, if we even look at, Adam Borix 2 fights ago, he did what we didn't think anybody could do to Aaron Pico. We saw Aaron Pico get choked out by a guillotine where he didn't really know what he was doing in jiu-jitsu yet, but he gets, Adam Borix knocks out Aaron Pico with a flying knee. I mean, that's how talented this guy is. And he's going, Patricio Pitbull. And what's the line on this? It's not that big of a spread. So it's not unheard of. And this is not a mismatch setting up the trilogy.
No, not at all. Adam Borix has worked his way to get here. As you said, I think the line that I saw was, like minus 160 for the champ. Borix coming in at like plus 130 as the challenger, which is pretty narrow when you think about, how dominant the champ has been. But as you said, Borix, he beat Pico, he beat Pat Curran, he beat Jeremy Kennedy, he beat Mads Burnells. I mean, he's earned his way up to the top. As you said, it's not he's being, given some kind of gift or, some kind of mismatch. No, he earned his way up to the spot. He's a very, very talented fighter. And I'm excited for this matchup. So this Bellator card I find very, very intriguing.
Yeah, as well. I'm really looking forward to it. And I think they've done a great job on the broadcast, especially in Dublin. They kind of wiped out the analyst desk, and it really just kept the pace moving along. The production is really growing by leaps and bounds there. Just an exciting product to watch, but kind of, the best in show, the best in the business, how they show. The UFC does have a card, UFC Fight Night. Not a lot of fanfare around it, but like you said, it really developing this under talent, headlined by the legend's daughter. Now, we don't throw around legend. We do throw around legend a lot, but Megaton Diaz, just a legend pioneer in the world of jiu-jitsu. His daughter, Mackenzie Dern, fighting in the main event of UFC Fight Night 211. What can we expect out of this card?
Look, this is a big matchup. She's facing Yan Xiaonan. This is a big one at strawweights, number 5 versus number 6 in the ranking. So, not necessarily an immediate number 1 contenders fight, but certainly to remain relevant in that division and to stay up at the top, because that strawweight division, man, it is talent rich. So, a big one. As you said, this card isn't loaded necessarily with the biggest names on it, but that's a very, very key matchup. I mean, you do have some other names that you're going to keep an eye on as well. Sadiq Yusuf lost his opponent, got a newcomer. So, I mean, he's on there. Jessica Penne is on the prelims as well. You got Ilir Latifi versus Alexei Olenek in an intriguing heavyweight fight. There's little spots on it. It's not the most stacked, fight night card ever, which is kind of one reason. I'll be honest with you, this is one of the rare instances where I'd probably look to Bellator with a little bit more intrigue, a little bit more interest. But, these can be going on. I think the way it works out, you can watch the UFC, and then by the time it's done, that the Bellator main card should be starting. So you actually don't even have to pick between either one of them. You can actually check them both out on Saturday. So it's going to be a stacked one for sure.
And these fight night cards are they're doing what I think they're intended to. And you mentioned it maybe a few weeks. They're developing that talent from underneath that is going to be pay-per-view talent in a fight or two.
That's right. It's again, and that sometimes when you look at the cards, you may go, well, I don't know if there's anybody I really want to watch there. But that's what you're seeing is you're getting guys an opportunity and girls as well, obviously, to develop their skills, to make a name for themselves. I mean, you don't come in right away in the UFC and fight for a championship. You got to kind of, carve out your path on some of the lower level cards. And that's what some of these fight night cards are. I think, they've really started to go out of their way to try and stack the pay-per-views as much as they can. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, that does mean that, maybe some of the fight night cards aren't quite as loaded with the top tier talent. But, you got to have the shows, and everybody's got to have an opportunity to compete. And, oh, by the way, can we just depending on just how busy you want your Saturday to be, don't talk a whole lot about Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, but they do have the debut of Ben Rothwell in BKFC this weekend, and that's on Saturday night as well. So I am kind of excited for that one as well, to see how big Ben Rothwell does over there.
Hey, listen, if you don't have ESPN Plus, it's $9.99 a month. You're going to see it's so worth it just to watch one UFC fight night a month. But they usually have around 2 or 3 that you can watch it. Get it. Now, for a value buy, if we're talking about a value buy, nothing beats bare knuckle value buy. Right? I got to judge a bare knuckle. It was awesome, but I believe it's $4.99 a month.
That's right.
Like last month, we got Michael Venom Page or MVP versus Platinum Mike Perry for $4.99 a month.
I'm telling you, it is actually really cheap, man. $4.99 a month, and they're usually doing 2, maybe even 3 shows a month, depending on the month. And they're starting to get some more recognizable names. Again, Ben Rothwell. I mean, the guy's been in combat sports for over 20 years, man. He started in the 90s, which is crazy, man. And he's making his debut over there. And listen, I think some people, if you haven't watched bare knuckle before, listen, there are some cuts. I mean, you're going to see a little bit of blood. There's no doubt about it, but. I don't think it's necessarily. I've talked to a lot of the guys that have done it, and they've kind of said, listen, I mean, you think about it, you make the transition from MMA to bare knuckle, and a lot of people say, oh, well, bare knuckles, that's so much more dangerous because you've got, again, bare knuckles. You're not wearing gloves. It's like, look, in MMA, we can take a shin upside our head. We can take a knee upside. Right. It's really no more dangerous. You just do see a lot more of kind of the superficial wounds because when you have that bare knuckle, you do get a little bit more cutting and stuff. So you'll see a touch of blood in there. But listen, BKFC is trying to build things up. And again, they keep bringing in, kind of more and more of these recognizable names to do so. And I'm excited to see Ben Rothwell compete.
Man, that's going to be fun. Just that Wisconsin boy walking down, like just hairy. Like I love it. I can't wait. I'm actually going to be watching all 3 of them, all 4 of them this weekend. But that's the nerd I am. And, it gives me a little reprieve from my kids every now and again, which is, I'm tremendously grateful for. But hey, we're wrapping up another edition of Cageside with John Morgan. Go ahead. Follow us, give us a listen on any of the platforms. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can look at us and listen to us at the same time on YouTube and/or grindcitymedia.com. Next week, we're going to go through what was this crazy busy weekend, and we're going to preview a couple pay-per-views away for UFC, some huge monumental fights coming up. But anything other than watching MMA for you this weekend?
That's all I'm doing, man. I'm gonna be watching tournament. I'm gonna be as full as I can as scheduled. I may have a little something on the back, but I'm trying to work it out here. Shaquille O'Neal, the legendary Shaq, is hosting a big event here at the MGM Grand Garden Arena on Saturday. There's a possibility I might slip out to that afterwards and go kind of rub elbows with some talent outside of the MMA space. So we'll see how it goes.
There we go. I love it. I don't really got much going on. I don't have the time, but I really enjoyed doing this podcast today. Hey, make sure, give us a like, give us a share, give us a click, give us a review, whatever you want. We want the feedback, and we appreciate the subscribe and the likes. For John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon, and we'll catch you next week on Cageside with John Morgan.